Fake HOAs harassed her family. They're all law enforcement veterans. The neighborhood of Crestview Ridge prided itself on its manicured lawns, uniform fences, and a quiet, safe atmosphere. At least that's what the laminated flyer said when the Carter family moved in. To the outside world, the Carters were the textbook example of an all-American family. A black family of four, strong, disciplined, and deeply rooted in service. Evelyn Carter, the matriarch, had recently retired as a decorated FBI field agent. Her husband, David, was a former Marine turned local sheriff's deputy. Their two children, Devin and Kayla, had followed suit. Devin, an Army Reserve sergeant, and Kayla, a newly minted police academy graduate. But none of that mattered to the self-appointed president of the fake HOA, a woman named Karen Whitmore. Karen, in her late 50s, saw herself as the guardian of neighborhood standards. Despite the fact that Crestview Ridge didn't even have a legally recognized homeowners association. She wore a custom black polo with the words Crestview Integrity Committee embroidered across the chest, a committee she invented. Karen took it upon herself to issue fines, warnings, and threats to anyone she deemed out of line. And the Carters, with their American flags, security cameras, and frequent uniformed visitors, were her new target. Things started subtly. A note left in their mailbox. Too many vehicles in the driveway is a safety concern. Please limit to 2. Another, flags should be no larger than 3.5. Yours is excessive. Then came accusations of intimidating behavior whenever David wore his deputy jacket outside. Evelyn tried to be diplomatic at first. We've served this country. We're here to live in peace. Karen smirked. Everyone says that. Doesn't mean you get to run a military base from your home. Then came the incident that lit a fire under the entire community. It was a Friday afternoon when Kayla, still in her academy blues, stopped by after a training session. As she pulled into the driveway, Karen stood on the sidewalk with her phone out, filming. This is the 3rd time this week someone in uniform has parked here. This is a residential neighborhood, she yelled. Kayla calmly stepped out, badge visible. Ma'am, I live here. And you're not HOA. This is harassment. Karen shouted louder, attracting neighbors. She's impersonating an officer. Call the police. This is a threat. That was the moment Evelyn came out, calm but visibly furious. She pulled out her own ID and FBI badge and stood between her daughter and the phone. You want to call the police? Fine. Let's all show our credentials when they arrive. But Karen did call, and that was her mistake. Within minutes, 2 local officers arrived, visibly uncomfortable when they recognized David Carter, their colleague. Karen was still yelling when the officers approached and asked her to step aside. We've got full confirmation this family is law enforcement, one officer explained quietly. Ma'am, we suggest you stop filming and leave the property. Karen screamed that she was being silenced, called it reverse racism, and threatened to sue. The Carters didn't yell. They just stood their ground. But someone else had filmed the whole thing. From across the street. That video, uploaded within the hour, exploded overnight. Woman calls cops on veteran family in uniform. Former FBI agent protects daughter from fake HOA's racism. Karen tries to police the police. Local news picked it up first, then national media, then talk shows. The footage showed Karen screaming at Kayla, accusing her of looking threatening in uniform, and shouting over Evelyn's quiet, dignified attempts to de-escalate. People were outraged. Veterans groups issued statements of support. Law enforcement communities posted tributes to the Carter family. Thousands flooded Crestview Ridge's city council, demanding action against the harassment. Karen's past began to surface. This wasn't her first citizen patrol moment. She had harassed Latino families over uncut lawns, issued fake noise citations to black teens having birthday parties, and even tried to evict a disabled veteran for having too many flags in his yard. Suddenly, she wasn't the enforcer. She was the face of intolerance. The backlash was swift. A group of local residents formed a real neighborhood unity council, this time inclusive, registered, and backed by city officials. Karen was formally warned to cease any impersonation of HOA authority. Businesses that had quietly supported her fake integrity committee backed away. Someone created a billboard near the neighborhood with a picture of the Carters in uniform and the words, "Real service, real sacrifice, real Americans." Karen's silence was deafening for a while. Then she appeared on a fringe news podcast claiming she was targeted for loving her country. But something changed. One morning as Kayla was watering the front lawn, Karen approached. She didn't have her phone. She didn't wear her fake HOA shirt, and her voice didn't carry its usual venom. "I didn't know. You were all in service," she said. Kayla glanced at her. "You didn't ask." Karen looked ashamed. "I grew up with fear. My dad always said people in uniforms, they'd never look like your family." Kayla set the hose down. "We've been protecting families like yours our whole lives. Even when you don't protect us." Karen didn't speak, but her eyes welled up. Then, without saying another word, she turned and walked away. Months passed. The Carter family became a symbol, not just of service, but of quiet resilience. They began hosting monthly community forums, open to all, discussions about race, policing, military life, and neighborhood unity. Karen never attended, but her porch was no longer decked out with rules. The fake integrity committee sign came down, and she stopped filming people. Some said she was just scared. Others said she was embarrassed. But one spring afternoon during a neighborhood memorial service for veterans, Karen showed up, alone, carrying a bouquet of red, white, and blue flowers. She walked up to the front row where the Carters sat. "I came to say thank you," she whispered. Evelyn stood. "Not just to us." Karen nodded and turned to the entire crowd. "To everyone here who has served, who has sacrificed, and who I never took the time to understand, I'm sorry." The crowd didn't clap. They just listened. And in that quiet, Karen took her seat beside them, not above them. In the end, it wasn't punishment that changed her. It was presence, truth, and the simple act of being seen. Because sometimes the loudest transformations begin with silence. And the Carters never needed to raise their voices to be heard. They just stood in the truth of who they were, heroes in a world that forgot what real honor looks like. Side story: the porch light. It was nearly a year after the incident. The neighborhood had changed, slowly but surely. The fake HOA flyers had stopped. The unofficial patrols disappeared. And the community potlucks, once sparsely attended and rigidly selective, now overflowed with neighbors of all backgrounds. Kids played freely, flags flew proudly, and front porches buzzed with real conversation. But something else had changed too. Karen Whitmore no longer stood guard with her clipboard and her camera. She still kept to herself mostly, but her rigid posture had softened. Instead of barking orders about lawn length or porch decor, she could sometimes be seen handing out lemonade to passing kids, or listening quietly from her steps. One evening, Evelyn Carter sat on her own porch sipping sweet tea. She watched the sky darken into hues of amber and lavender, the sun setting gently behind the rooftops. Just as she leaned back into her chair, she noticed something across the street. Karen's porch light was flickering. Then it turned off, then on again. Off. On. It was the signal they used years ago during her undercover days. 3 flickers for, "Can we talk?" Evelyn stood. No badge, no armor. Just a woman who knew that some wars weren't fought on foreign soil. They happened in our backyards. She walked across the street. Karen stood at the door, not defiant or defensive this time, just human. In her hands, she held an old photo album, edges worn, pages fraying. "I wanted to show you something." Evelyn hesitated, then stepped inside. The living room was filled with the quiet scent of lavender and old books. Karen sat on the couch and opened the album. "This was my brother. James, served in Desert Storm. I never told anyone." Evelyn looked at the photo. A young black soldier in fatigues, standing tall with a beaming smile. "He was my best friend," Karen whispered. "He saved my life once. Pulled me out of a flood when we were kids, but I lost him. In the war. And she paused, breath catching. "I guess I buried that part of myself with him. The good part." Evelyn sat beside her. "Maybe you didn't lose it. Maybe you just forgot where you left it." Karen turned to her, tears falling freely. "I was so wrong about your family, about everything. I thought control would protect me, but it only made me bitter." Evelyn reached over and closed the album gently. Redemption doesn't come from being perfect, Karen. It comes from being present, even when it hurts. Karen nodded. Would you come by tomorrow night? I'm hosting a dinner. Just a few neighbors. I want people to see who I'm trying to become. Evelyn smiled. We'll bring dessert. That night, the porch lights on both sides of the street stayed on, not out of fear, but as beacons of something new. Understanding. Morale of the story. Even the most judgmental hearts can change, but it takes truth, patience, and the courage to sit across from someone you once feared and see them. The end.